morning. Welcome to Chalice Unitarian Universalist Congregation. We are a community of diverse beliefs and experiences, nurturing the liberal religious spirit and united by our desire to grow in love and in service. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your life's journey, you are welcome here. Whether you gather with us every Sunday, once or twice a year, or are with us this morning for the first time, we are glad you are here. I'm Reverend Sharon Wiley, Chalice's minister. Our worship musician this morning is our music director, Tim McKnight. Welcome to this online worship service. Welcome to those of you watching live Sunday morning using Zoom, and welcome to those of you who are watching the recording of this service later on our YouTube channel. For those of us using Zoom, please notice on your menu, you have a button that says CC Live Transcript. This is Zoom's closed captioning service, and you can click on it to hide subtitle if you don't want to see it, or you can show subtitle if you want that function on, so you're in control of that. Also on your menu is the chat button. For those of us who like to use the chat during the service, which you're welcome to do, please be sure that when you post that you've used that little blue drop-down menu to select panelists and attendees. If you only post to panelists, the message only comes to me, and I might not see it during the service. We like to use chat to talk to each other, to talk as a group. So let's all give ourselves a big hug of hello and welcome this morning, another week. Good to be together. Finally, I want to welcome, especially welcome those of you who are newcomers at Chalice. Towards the end of the service, I'll put a link in the chat box that you can follow to use our online form to give us your email address. Our weekly email is the best way to get information about the many groups and activities we offer, still using Zoom, we're still online. And once you are on our email list, you'll receive information about our monthly gathering for newcomers. Now, let's take a breath together.
Good morning. According to the Library of Congress, the first permanent Euro-American settlements began a pattern of displacement and land appropriation of indigenous people that continued until the 20th century. In this region that we consider home, the Kumeyaay first lived here for over 10,000 years and were the people who greeted the Spanish when they first sailed into the San Diego harbor in 1542. With this awareness, we acknowledge that Chalice is located on the stolen, tribal, ancestral homeland of the Apai, which is part of the Kumeyaay Nation, and the Payamkawichem Nation. This acknowledgement reminds us that we live in a history-driven present and that we need to be intentional with this land and with the people indigenous to the land. Mary Lyons from the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe states, "When we, the indigenous people, talk about land, land is part of who we are. It is a mixture of our blood, our past, our current, and our future." According to the research done with Reclaiming Native Truth, 40% of Americans do not believe that indigenous people still exist in the U.S. Chalice hopes that with our first step of land acknowledgement, we can move towards educating ourselves and others about indigenous communities and their rich and diverse culture and create a meaningful relationship with them as well.
Now we light our chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. The flaming chalice was first used during World War II by the Unitarian Service Committee as a symbol of life-saving refuge for people fleeing persecution in Europe. May our chalice flame burn brightly, that all who are seeking may find us. We all of us make our way through the world, yearning for belonging and love, acceptance for who we are as we are. And our greatest struggle can be to love ourselves, to accept ourselves as we are, perfectly imperfect, beautifully vulnerable, certainly uncertain. Here in community, we make our messy way together, trying to love each other, trying to love ourselves, trying to accept each other, trying to accept ourselves. Blessings on this community of hope and struggle and love. Blessings on us and our shared spiritual practice this morning. Let us worship together. You're invited to join in singing.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the gut of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power in each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Our Sunday worship is the shared spiritual practice of our community, and we tend to the congregation during this time by honoring our joys and sorrows. If you would like to share a joy or sorrow with the congregation this morning, now is the time for sharing in the chat box. We won't speak these out loud. They won't be part of the recording. I do want to share that the news from the CDC this week that masks aren't as necessary anymore for vaccinated people was met with very mixed responses. So I know we have congregants who were joyful at hearing that news, and we also have congregants who struggled hearing that news. I think people who immunocompromised people, people with young children, people for whom the vaccines aren't effective, felt a lot of uncertainty about that announcement. So as we share our joys and sorrows, possibly about that news this morning, I just want to remind us to hold each other very gently and to be compassionate with each other, that there are different responses to this change in what we've been told. If you would like to send me a confidential note about your joy or sorrow, or to schedule time to meet with me, please email me and I'll put my email in the chat box.
all the stirrings of compassion blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Our story today is called Duck, Rabbit by Amy Krauss Rosenthal and Tom Lichtenheld.
Hey, look, a duck.
That's not a duck. That's a rabbit.
Are you kidding me? It's totally a duck.
It's for sure a rabbit.
See? There's her bill.
What are you talking about? Those are her ears, silly.
It's a duck. And she's about to eat a piece of bread.
It's a rabbit, and she's about to eat a carrot. Quack, quack.
Wait. Listen. Did you hear that? I heard duck sounds.
That's funny. I distinctly heard rabbit sounds.
Now the duck is wading through the swamp.
No, the rabbit is hiding in the grass.
There. See? It's flying.
Flying? It's hopping.
Look. The duck is so hot, she's getting a drink.
No, the rabbit is so hot, she is cooling off her ears.
Here. Look at the duck through my binoculars.
Sorry, still a rabbit.
Here, ducky, ducky.
Here, you cute little rabbit.
Oh, great. You scared him away.
I didn't scare him away. You scared him away.
You know what? Maybe you were right. Maybe it was a rabbit.
Thing is, now I'm actually thinking it was a duck.
Well, anyway, now what do you want to do?
I don't know. What do you want to do?
Hey, look, an anteater.
That's not an anteater. That's a brachiosaurus. It has long been part of my ministry to preach regularly about topics related to mental health and mental illness, to raise our collective awareness, and especially to help reduce stigma related to mental illness. This morning, I am preaching in recognition that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So I want to start by lifting up that we all have times of mental health and mental illness, just in the same way that we all have times of physical health and physical illness. Our moods and thoughts are part of our complicated bodies and brains. And there's nothing shameful or wrong with finding yourself depressed or anxious, or, as we will talk about in just a few minutes, paranoid. One of the great challenges of experiencing any kind of mental illness is that our self-awareness is often diminished as part of what we're experiencing. So someone struggling with depression, for example, can often be unaware of how significant their depression has become. They know they aren't feeling great, but like I just said, we all have times of not feeling great, and it can be hard to evaluate how significant what you're experiencing is or is not. I will always encourage you to talk to your doctor to get help evaluating whether what you are experiencing could benefit from professional help, which might include therapy or medication or both, or whether you just need a couple of pajama days at home. There's a great deal of stigma around, particularly around taking medication for mental illness. So I always want to lift up that many people, including many of our Chalice congregants, have benefited from taking medication to support their mental health. And I know more than one person who would tell you that finding the right medication has saved their life. So please don't ever make assumptions or be dismissive about medication. When I thought about what I wanted to talk about in depth today, I felt very curious about the interest that many people have in the world have in the QAnon conspiracy, which seems to have elements of cult behavior, maybe, or mass delusion. And I settled on paranoia as our topic for this morning because I thought that learning more about paranoia might help us collectively understand something about QAnon followers. But what I found in learning more is that whatever is going on with QAnon followers, it's not paranoia. So I'm going to spend this part of the service telling you some of what I've learned about paranoia, since that's what I set out to do. But then later in the service, I have some thoughts to share about QAnon, because I know I'm not the only one who's interested in having a better understanding of that dynamic. So as always, please remember and know I'm not a doctor or an expert on these topics at all. I'm a curious and interested reader. What I'm telling you today is based on my understanding after reading part of a book and a bunch of stuff on the internet. And my main hope is that if this topic interests you, or if it sparks some recognition in you for something you're experiencing or you have loved ones experiencing, that what I share today points you in some helpful directions for your own further study and learning. The term paranoid gets tossed around very inaccurately, as if it means the same thing as anxious or obsessed. But paranoia is something pretty specific. It's a belief or feeling that you, the experiencer, is being threatened in some way, that you're being persecuted, you're being mistreated. In my understanding of paranoia, I think of it as having two central characteristics, and they're intertwined. So you could also call them one characteristic. But that feeling of persecution, that someone is out to get the paranoid person. But two, there's a thread of narcissism in paranoia, of what's called grandiosity. It's pretty self-absorbed to imagine that you're so important that other people are out to get you. So I'm going to give you an example of that. We all have paranoid thoughts from time to time. My most common one is a regular interaction I have with my husband, Peter, and I have his permission to share this story. He frowns when he's thinking. He furrows his brow, and probably once a month or so, when I see him frown, looking to me like he's frowning, I'll say, "Are you mad at me?" Because in that moment, I think I'm the center of the universe. And if Peter is angry or unhappy, then it must have to do with me, right? And then he usually says something like, "What are you talking about? I'm not even thinking about you." And I'm reminded that I'm not the center of the universe, and that Peter has a whole rich, interesting life without me. Not only that, but he's an emotionally mature adult who I can trust to talk with me if he's upset with me. If I had more severe paranoia, if I had paranoid personality disorder, or perhaps delusional disorder, it would not be so easy for me to set aside my paranoid thought. I might imagine that Peter is manipulating me by trying to get me to think that he's not mad at me. I might imagine that he's hiding something from me. I might imagine that he's having an affair. Jealousy can be an expression of paranoia. And I might feel very convinced about these ideas, even though there's no evidence that they're true. People experiencing significant paranoia are convinced that the things they believe are true because they know that they're true. It's cyclical thinking. But that sense of certainty can make it very hard for people experiencing paranoia to seek help and to accept help, because they're convinced that what they're thinking, their beliefs and their feelings are true. So if you try to reach out to someone struggling with paranoia, if you try to confront them with truth or with offers of help, it is often the case that they will turn their suspicion and fear onto you, the person offering help, and see you as someone who's trying to harm them. So all of this can be very difficult for loved ones and caregivers to cope with, not to mention very difficult for the person experiencing it. It's a hard way to live. One of the things I want you to hear today is that underneath the paranoia is a deep, deep yearning that we all have for love and acceptance. People experiencing severe paranoia fear being rejected and unloved. So they project onto others those fears and do the rejecting first in order to save themselves the pain of the anticipated rejection. So to put it a different way, they assume everyone is out to get them because of a deep belief that if people really knew who they were, faults and all, that they would want to do them harm. Paranoia can be understood as a form of self-loathing. So paranoia can take lots of different forms. It can be a symptom of other illnesses. Many of you may have heard of the diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a thought disorder characterized by psychosis. I've preached on schizophrenia before. And in some people, that psychosis includes paranoid delusions. So in that case, the paranoia is part of a range of symptoms that someone with schizophrenia is struggling with. Paranoia, the experience of paranoia becomes more common as we get older, probably part of cognitive decline or other illnesses of aging. It's estimated that 23% of older people may be experiencing paranoia at any given time. So learning about paranoia basically taught me that there's a lot to learn and know about paranoia. I feel like I've told you almost nothing. Related topics are anxiety, obsessiveness, delusions, illusions, hallucinations. Delusional disorder and paranoid personality disorder are two significant diagnoses associated with paranoid thoughts. People experiencing paranoia are often very good at hiding what they are thinking because they are suspicious of you and don't want you to know their thoughts. I think it is likely that many of us have had more experiences with paranoid people than we may realize. Several times I have realized that someone I know is having paranoid thoughts because they've revealed enough of their thinking put into writing in an email. So something that they hadn't revealed during everyday interactions came out in a different way. In general, the advice for loved ones of people experiencing paranoia is to do what you can to be accommodating. You don't want to lie to the person. You don't want to play along with something you don't believe is true. The paranoid person can tell you don't believe it. Don't just make them more suspicious of you. But if there are strategies to help the person feel safe, they're yearning for a sense of safety. So like if they request keeping the windows shut or something like that, and the request can be accommodated, that will be simpler, that will be more loving than trying to argue or convince your loved one that they're wrong. Arguing is mostly going to be a waste of energy with someone who has significant paranoia. You want to show as much respect and reassurance as you can. So remember, I said that this is an illness that is fundamentally about self-loathing. Responding with as much love and compassion as you can is a gift. And if you think you might be experiencing paranoia yourself, it's a good sign that you have that wondering, because self-awareness is one of the things that can get lost when we're not feeling well. So if you think you might be experiencing that, you can ask someone you trust to help you reality test, is what it's called. You sort of check out your reality. So ask a friend, is it rational for me to believe my husband is secretly mad at me? And listen to what they say. The emotional work for someone experiencing paranoia is to learn to be gentler with themselves, less judgmental of themselves and others, more accepting of themselves and others, and to learn to manage anger. And this is all great work to do, of course, with a therapist. It isn't known exactly what causes paranoia. It appears there's a genetic component. Families that have diagnoses of schizophrenia are more likely to have diagnoses of paranoia-related illnesses as well. But there's also contributing factors from the world around us. And as we are living in a time of abundant misinformation, anxiety, and fear, I hope it is helpful to understand a little bit better something of what paranoia is about. You're invited to join in singing.
When I am frightened, will you reassure me? When I am uncertain, will you hold my hand? Will you be strong for me? Sing to me quietly. Will you share some of your stories with me? If you will show me compassion, then I may learn to care as you do. Then I may learn to care. When I am angry, will you still embrace me? When I am thoughtless, will you understand? Will you believe in me? Stand by me willingly? Will you share some of your questions with me? If you will show me acceptance, then I may learn to give as you do. Then I may learn to give. When I am troubled, will you listen to me? When I am lonely, will you be my friend? Will you be there for me? Comfort me tenderly. Will you share some of your feelings with me? If you will show me commitment, then I may learn to love as you do. Then I may learn to love.
The Sunday offering is an expression of the generosity that makes our congregational life possible. As Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron writes, generosity is an activity that loosens us up. By offering whatever we can, $1, a flower, a word of encouragement, we are training in letting go. Please text your donation to Chalice. If you haven't texted a donation before, know that once you text the amount, you'll get a reply with a link to follow to enter your credit card information. And once you've entered this information once when you've donated, you won't need to enter it again for subsequent donations. If your Sunday donation is part of your pledge payment, please be sure to indicate the word pledge after the dollar amount. And also know that you can make a text donation anytime. It doesn't need to be during the worship hour. The phone number will be on screen in a moment, and I'll also put it in the chat box. Please give generously. Please join in dedicating our offering with words of affirmation. As Unitarian Universalists, we gather to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person.
I pray you'll be our eyes and watch us where we go, and help us to be wise in times when we don't know. Let this be our prayer when we lose our way. Lead us to a place, guide us with your grace, to a place where we'll be safe. I pray you'll be our light and hold it in our hearts when stars go out each night. Remind us where you are. Let this be our prayer when shadows fill our day. Help us find a place
So as I mentioned earlier, I came to this topic wanting to understand more about QAnon followers. To recap, for any of us who may not know or have lost track of this group, let me sum it up quickly by reading to you from Wikipedia. QAnon, or simply Q, is a discredited American far-right conspiracy theory alleging that a cabal of Satan-worshiping cannibalistic pedophiles run a global child sex trafficking ring and plotted against former US President Donald Trump while he was in office. QAnon is commonly called a cult. That's a lot in a couple of sentences. Belief in a conspiracy theory is not a symptom of mental illness, by the way. Polling shows that a majority of people believe in some conspiracy theory or another. So it's not considered to be an abnormal belief or unusual way of thinking. Paranoia doesn't match with the QAnon dynamic because paranoia, remember, requires that sense of personal persecution. Someone is out to get me, with those threads of narcissism and grandiosity. Everything's about me. The obsessions and delusions of QAnon followers are centered around someone else, Trump, not centered around themselves. Instead, what I discovered in my reading is that the most important element we can probably attribute to QAnon followers is what's called suggestibility. So listen to this definition from psychiatrist and author Martin Cantor. Suggestible individuals show an intense need to belong, as manifest by their adopting the beliefs of others, true or false, and embracing them fully, in effect subjugating themselves to a leader, often himself or herself a truly paranoid individual with a delusional theory that happens to resonate with the general public. Reading about suggestibility led me to the work of Gustave Le Bon, a French intellectual who lived and wrote in the 1800s, and his work on understanding crowd psychology, also called mob psychology. And I want to suggest that perhaps we need to look at crowd psychology as a framework for understanding how the internet works in bringing large numbers of people together in ways that activate and prey on suggestible individuals. So as you watch this video, information about crowd psychology, think about how it works on social media as well.
Gustave Le Bon was an expert in many different subjects, from medicine to psychology to physics. He is best known for his book, The Crowd, A Study of the Popular Mind, which explained crowd psychology and why people behave differently in groups. A crowd is a group of people united by a common ideology, belief, or idea. However, the characteristics of the crowd are far different from the characteristics of the individuals within it. Le Bon said that when part of a crowd, the individual becomes less civilized. Where a person may be cultured outside of a crowd, when part of it, they act like a barbarian, behaving on instinct. These crowd characteristics are produced by 3 causes. By being aware of these causes, techniques can be used to intentionally manipulate crowds to behave in a particular way. This has been used in the fields of business and politics in the past, with many questioning whether it is ethical to do so. In the summer of 2011, I watched on television as thousands of people rioted in towns and cities across England for nearly a week. Many shops and businesses were destroyed as a result of arson and looting. People behaved like this in a crowd, but why do they not behave like that when they're on their own? For some it would be a question of morals. For others it would simply be due to the fear of being arrested and jailed. Le Bon argues that when in a crowd, the anonymity that the crowd provides the individual, due to the large numbers, means that they lose their fear of the consequences, as well as their moral responsibility. This temporary feeling of invincibility causes them to be unable to restrain certain instincts that they otherwise would. In February 2013, a man in China started selling cans of fresh air for 80 cents due to the bad pollution in the country at the time. Despite admitting that the canned air was a light-hearted stunt, in 10 days he managed to sell 10 million cans. In a previous video, I spoke about how in the Netherlands in the 1600s, tulips were seen as a symbol of status. The value of tulips rose so high that people were spending their life savings on tulip bulbs simply because everyone else was buying them, which resulted in a large amount of money lost when the prices eventually crashed. Both these stories are examples of fads as a result of contagion. In a crowd, Le Bon believed that every act is contagious, to a point where an individual will sacrifice his personal interest for the interest of the crowd. Fresh air in a can was a nonsensical fad, and buying a can of fresh air was a nonsensical act that an individual would not do on their own. However, when part of a crowd, even irrational acts become contagious. The word demagogue was born in ancient Greece. It comes from the words demos, meaning the people, and agogos, meaning leader. In the 20th century, there are many examples of demagogues who had a powerful influence over crowds due to suggestibility. They have transformed a nation of individuals, most of which had no intention of ever murdering a fellow human being, to act ruthlessly and inhumanely by pushing for brutality. The mob mentality that arose turned the crowd into a bigoted, vicious and genocidal horde. Le Bon claimed that after being part of a crowd for a period of time, the individual enters a state similar to being hypnotised, where they are mesmerised by the leader of the crowd. The power and influence that leaders of these crowds have can lead to terrible atrocities. The leader can influence the crowd to think and feel a certain way. The crowd then often turns those thoughts into acts.
So I don't have the answers for how we overcome crowd psychology that comes from the internet, that can reach into individual people's homes. But it is certainly a step in the right direction to have a useful framework for understanding what's happening. It will also hopefully be a step in the right direction for the pandemic to come to a close and for people to have more things to do than explore conspiracy theories on the internet. And maybe for people who are highly suggestible, we can come up with some better suggestions to help pull them back to rational thinking so they can find a sense of acceptance and belonging in a different, healthier way. May it be so. You're invited to join in singing.
There is a law.
Our closing words come from Reverend Wayne Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. Blessed be. You're invited to close our time together by singing the well, and everyone is invited to coffee hour.